Hey, so welcome to Anthony and Joey's podcast today. This is for a special project we're doing. Anthony and I teamed up looking at Latinx representation in gaming culture. And what do we mean by that? Well, that was that was the core of our question. You want to introduce yourself for a second, Anthony?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Anthony Ramirez. I am a PhD candidate at Texas A&M University in the communication department. I study, a majority of my research focuses on Latino, Latina, Latinx, Hispanic, Hispanics, Chicano, Chicanx, whatever terminology you want to use, representation within popular culture and media. Hence the reason this project is so fascinating to both Joey and I, that we're both really but one, we're both Mexican American, and we're both from Texas. And so what inspired us from that's one key or two key aspects of our identity that really motivated us to move with this project and and we're both really interested in popular culture as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So
And
interest,
I was oh,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, just intersecting all that and just kind of like connecting it all together kind of inspired us um to pursue this project.
Yeah, yeah. And the project came about because Texas Tech put a call out. They
Yeah,
put a call out for a conference they were going to be hosting both virtual and in person, which we're going to in person. Uh,
going in person.
and I saw it and Anthony saw it and I was like, Anthony, you interested in this? And he was like, Joe, I'm writing my dissertation. I'm doing a bunch of stuff, but like, why not? Like, let's put it on the plate. And I was like, yeah, we're crazy. Let's see how this goes. So we submitted our proposal, which was basically what we just said. We kind of were like, hey, I mean, in a way, I mean, I have a PhD. I forgot. I'm an associate professor at Texas A&M, and I teach popular culture and radio records and popular music and a bunch of technology and communication skills courses and new media and things like that. And I have a huge track record, but the reality is that I'm Latino from Texas. Like I'm a sixth generation Texan. And so when people are like, hey, we want to talk about your culture. And I say it like that because it's kind of like, that's how I feel. And a topic that I grew up in, but didn't necessarily like exude. I did at certain times in my life, but not like always, which is gaming in this context. Uh, I talked to Anthony about it, or Anthony talked to me about it, and we were both kind of like, I wonder what they mean, because like we're Texan, and we've definitely grew up with gaming, and like we started talking about like, what does that mean? What like Anthony, like I was literally like, Anthony, like what? So when you were gaming, like what was it like? And we like when we were ideating out the abstract, I mean, we sat there and just like would talk and write down notes, right? I mean, that's like,
Yeah, and I think another thing we both thought right away from the beginning of this project, we thought everyone, like most people, we believed are going to focus on maybe a textual analysis or like analyzing a video game featuring a Latinx character. And so we wanted to stray away from that. Again, we did more self-reflection on ourselves, as Joey mentioned. And from there, it kind of sparked these ideas of like, okay, who are we as gamers? How has gaming influenced us in our past? And so from there, we kind of got this idea of like, what if we focused on the community and integrate the culture into that?
yeah. And like, and we literally would leave with that kind of question mark that Anthony had at the end of that, where it was like, right? Like, I think that's what we're gonna do. And so we would go back and forth, and literally in real time, we'd be on Zoom. We'd start screen sharing. We'll probably do some today, and we would show each other like, well, this is the shop I would go to, and I'd look it up on Google Maps and do a street view and show them like the street view of what was around. And then Anthony would be like, oh, well, this is where I would go, and show me a street view, and we'd look at Like we literally did these like virtual tours online in digital spaces to see, get a visual idea of what we were talking about. And then over time, it was literally to the point where he and I were doing like deep digs into our own like photos of our like as kids and as young adults, like finding like what we kind of teased out as like cultural artifacts of our own like lived reality. Because I do participatory embedded ethnography for the most part when I'm doing research. And Anthony has done a lot of analysis, but like he was like, I'll try this with you, and I'm like, yeah, dude, like let's just do it. Like let's just see where this goes. And one of the things that we really focused on was not worrying so much about like our results and kind of just saying, hey, this is a journey. The other thing was is that we only had so much time, right? I mean,
Yeah, that was a major limitation within our project and research, and in terms of data collection too. I
yeah,
guess to put it in academic terms, but like in generalized terms, we were limited in time, and so because of that limitation of time, we weren't able to travel as much as we would have liked to. We weren't able to interview people because there's a process that we need to go through as academics called the Institutional Review Board, or IRB. And through that process, again, in generalized terms, it's a way that it's a way that they monitor the procedures or the methods that we are partaking in this research, and making sure that the people involved within the study are that it's done
protected.
in a
Yeah,
safe manner, and that no harm is done physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and maybe to us as the
yeah,
researcher, joking aside, joking, but it's just me being sarcastic,
yeah,
but um it's just a way for the participants involved with the study to be safe. Unfortunately, like we mentioned, due to time constraints, we weren't able to conduct the interviews or have participants within our study, so that made us again think about the process of the study even more, and how we wanted to conduct this project, and how we wanted to collect the materials and data for this project even further.
yeah. It was and and to kind of give, we kept saying it was like time constraint. It was like a month and a half, which to do IRB takes a month. So it's like it's just not enough time because we weren't we didn't get accepted right away. We had to like resubmit, so it was like a little bit of a wild ride for us, but we enjoyed it. I mean, even during that time we were still thinking about it, but it was one of those things where as an academic, and I consider Anthony more of an academic than me, but but as an academic, we put a lot on our plate, and then like if things aren't coming to fruition right then and there, we have to put it on the back burner to keep going on to the next thing. And so when this popped up and said, "Hey, no, this really can't happen," we went into full gear and started saying, "Okay, well, let's meet up and have these conversations." And what we ended up doing was really mapping out um, some cultural and social and geographic resources that we found either online or by talking to each other, literally. One of the first things that we did was just talk about our own experience. I mean, Anthony, you told me about how your friends and you would play, like literally play video games, and that to this day that's how you all stay in communication. You want to talk
every
about that?
every Friday, my friends and I, every Friday evening, my friends and I, who all of us live in different areas across the United States, all of them are my best friends. We have a group chat together, and we keep in touch that way. But the other way we keep in touch and follow up with each other and talk about our weeks, our days, whatever it may be, our issues, and it's our venting session or therapeutic session, if you will. And our way of keeping in touch with one another is through is through playing video games with one another, and through the use of like online gaming, and the use of a party chat, which basically is like um a way, kind of like the way we use Zoom now, that we can in minus the video, is that you can gather in one online space and communicate with one another. So not only do we communicate through the game itself and be like, oh, this person's in this area, this person's here, let's go over there or that, but we talk about our days, we talk about our life, we talk about if we've had issues with X, Y, and Z, you know what I mean? It really is a giant therapeutic session for my best friends and I. And it's a way for us to talk to each other about things like we've talked about. Like, I remember when I first got accepted into the PhD program, that's the way I announced it to my friends. I announced it through video games. When my best friend well, no, that's not it. He texted all of us, but we had announced major things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
We've
yeah.
announced some major things through gaming, and so we connect really strongly through our conversations through and interactions that we have while playing and interacting with each other through these virtual worlds, and it's fun. It's cool.
Yeah, and you know, like I would, and literally what I would do is I'd be like, so would y'all speak just like purely English, or do y'all speak Spanglish? And like that's like what we would do is we just go back and forth and suss out like the nuance of our stories. And we would, I think we probably did like probably 3-4 hours worth of sessions. Like there would be like half an hour to an hour long sessions, and we
Right.
met up multiple times. For a while there, we were meeting up like 2 to 3 times a week, just going and talking back and forth during that real succinct time
Hmm.
that we had to like get this done. And but what it ended up building out was kind of just this like cultural map for us. Like we were making like an outline and kind of saying, okay, these are things we're noticing, these are things we see like within our own stories. And then we did informally talk to some people as well. For example, ultimately Anthony would end up coming to San Antonio with me one weekend, and he got to meet my business partner, who is this guy named Christian Rios. And you know, it's like I don't even like I'm so obtuse sometimes that I forget that, like, you know, I own a hi-fi store, by the way, where we sell high-end audio electronics. But that also used to be an arcade that my business partner started, and you know, we had all these arcade consoles, and we did all of these events, and I would help them out. I wasn't part of the arcade financially, but just I was a big supporter. And we would build literally we would build fight sticks, we'd just do all this kinds of different stuff. And so Anthony got to go and then meet with him and talk about gaming and game culture. And you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, we talked, I think, minimally about that. We talked a lot
Yeah,
about other like we were
we
talking
all
about.
talked about art. Y'all
We
talked
talked
about
about
art.
art. We talked about
Yeah,
art. We talked about popular culture and
yeah,
his experiences as growing up in San Antonio.
yeah.
Some of
Which was shared.
it was, and I think initially that is what this project is about too: lived experiences and again, um, gaming communities and spaces.
Yeah,
But and initially the conversation that Christian and I had was on popular culture and his life, and he was telling me about his different professions and stuff, but relating it back to this project,
yeah, yeah.
he was talking to me and Joey's wife Karina, of my friend Hector and Christian's fiance, about um the arcade that he had started there, and that, you know, the time the arcade was there, the type of games over there. He also mentioned about his sports cards collection, his Pokemon card collection, and both of us really like resonated and related to each other and connected with each other on that level of like nerdiness and popular culture and geekiness. You know, I feel like I'm more of the nerd and geek in terms of like the way I look and stuff, because he's more in shape and
Yeah,
stuff.
he's like the well, he played, you know, he played varsity basketball and played like junior college ball, and like, you know, he's an athlete. And so you know, everybody always thought he would never, you'd never see that guy playing video games. And it turned out he was like really into video
Really huge
games. And
gamer.
one
And
of his outlets. And
yeah, he
so go
even
ahead.
showed me within his office a Sega Dreamcast that he had, and he was telling me about like a modded. It might be that
Yeah.
platform or that system that he ended up modding um the system to like really like give it all these enhancements and all these cool things to it too. And I was just like, wow. So I was just really fascinated by all the different avenues and things he's into. So that was a really cool conversation.
Yeah, and so yeah, so what we were doing was, like we said, we were just going back and forth, but what would happen is that we would then kind of suss out something. Like, for example, maybe we would be talking about game developers in Latinx culture. And so then we'd go on these like huge Google searches and looking for leads on that, and that would lead Anthony and I to find different resources, whether it was on Facebook or I think we found one in El Paso on Meetup.com.
Mhm.
It was like a game developer, and it was just like this woman that was like, "Hey, I want to do games. I want to make video games," and then we looked, and there were like 21 people that were part of this meetup, and it was crazy because their first meetup I think was like last week or something like that, like right before we present. And so it was like really kind of like informative, and that this is literally happening right now. A lot of what we're seeing wasn't like just in the past, which there are lots of things in the past, but there was also like active culture being created in both El Paso and in San Antonio, and I think Texas in general. Like I even when we were looking for places in San Antonio, we started getting recommended to places that were in San Marcos and New Braunfels, and like you kind of start seeing that there's there are all these game shops, and then there are all these like regional tournaments, Smash Bros, and all the other gaming platformers that people.
And on top of that, there were conventions too that we started to see um as well. Like there's one that we saw that on a poster in one of the shops that we attended and visited, that there's going to be a shop that intersects anime with video games and Latinx culture, because the character on the poster looked like an anime character but in a traditional Mexican dress, you know. And I was just like, wow, that's really cool. Like
Yeah, you want to show that? Do you have that?
let me see if I have the
Yeah,
image.
yeah, no worries. I can
Um,
fill while we do that. But
so
yeah, and that came out of us. So like I said, Anthony came to San Antonio. The first day we just kind of hung out, and then the second day we went to, I believe, like 7 shops in about 3 to 4 hours, all over San Antonio. Literally, I mean, all over. We didn't get to go, and we didn't even get to go to every place. We just went to a good number. San Antonio is 460 square miles, and so there were some places on the south side. We wanted to go to Pika Pika. There was actually a comic book store that we wanted to go check out as kind of like a comparison to some of the gaming stores, because that's another thing that we noticed was that some of the comic book stores actually have a lot of gaming merchandise, like whether it's for the consoles or not, or for PC gaming. It's more that they have the characters, they have posters, they have like trinkets, literally, of gaming culture. So, oh, there you go.
So here we have Kawakan. I hope I pronounced that correctly. As you can see, again, it's connecting anime and gaming together into one convention. And this is the character I was mentioning, that it's an anime looking female character in a traditional Mexican dress. And the colors, the style of the dress, and the little floral decorations are very traditional to again, traditional Mexican dresses.
Yeah,
And
and it's got like this. I just know it has the San Antonio skyline in the background. Like that's like the Tower of the Americas, which is like the downtown skyline. So that's kind of interesting too. This whole like anime slash gaming slash really making it like understand that it's taking place in San Antonio.
what's
So
interesting in relation to the anime and gaming intersect is or connection is that was found like throughout the stores that we attended as well, that that I guess I'm trying to find the right
There's a
word.
fluidity.
Yeah, it's an interesting fluidity between and duality, I guess, too.
Yeah, yeah,
Like dual identities of like Asian culture mixed with Latinx and Hispanic culture.
yeah.
And
Because
it,
like a lot of the anime stores had like Asian snacks, but also then would have like
hachimos
yeah,
and
chamoy style snacks,
yeah.
which chamoy is like a chile that they put on like anything.
Yeah,
Really.
like a chamoy and tajin, like
Yeah,
with like fruit snacks and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
It was really interesting seeing this like um yeah, like these intersecting identities together that
and
people
and
wouldn't think would.
and even like when we went to that Wonderland Mall of the America or whatever, I think that's what it's called, and they had like this mini like Mercado style mall within the mall, and they had like these like uh, uh like a sci-fi store, and they had like almost like a, well, they had a K-pop store
You
just
had a
flat out.
K-pop store,
Yeah, they had a K-pop store, and then they had
like a record or
yeah, and but then they had like this, and I'm not
like
trying to
a
like,
metal shop.
it was like an Asian shop that
Oh,
was almost like hair what's it called,
hair extensions.
no Japanese culture. I forget what it's called. Harajuku. Is that right? I don't know. I don't want to be too naive about it, but like they had, and we have photos and stuff. We'll actually, maybe, well, I'll pull it up later because I got, Anthony knows I have too many photos. But it was just this really interesting thing. We'll put it in the blog. Um, y'all can check it out. And then the gaming shop was like, we were like, oh well, let's go find the game, and the gaming shop's like literally right next to the Mercado part,
Mhm.
and so it's kind of like this whole kind of space that physically had like this weird hybridity, this I don't know, borderland space, because we use Glorion Zaldua, and like, yeah, it was just,
It
I don't
was
know, what did you think?
interesting intersection of that in betweenness that Glorian Saldua mentions, that Nepantla, that it was really an intersection of identities and in betweenness of cultures too. And we found this throughout the project, that we keep seeing these different intercultural aspects of work come into play, and it was just so fascinating to us, like both as researchers and as just people who are into these type of things. It just like for me, it was funny, like we would go into these stores and everything, like, and I would put on like my quote unquote academic goggles or academic hat or whatever, and I would just be like on like like I used this metaphor the other day with Joey. It was like I felt like I was like the Terminator or something, and just analyzing and just like and just like recording and taking images and photos, and just kind of like soaking in the experience too, because it's like that's kind of like what we were doing as like not only as communication scholars but as anthropologists as well, as we're like really looking at the culture, and not just like Latinx and Hispanic culture, but we're also looking at the video game culture too, to see how, again, I keep using the word intersect because we're trying to find the connections together within these spaces. And it was just so fascinating. It was just so, I don't know, I loved it.
Yeah,
This
it definitely like left me having so many more questions than I came in with. And I thought I had a lot of questions, but like even now, like one of the things that popped into my head as we're sitting here is just thinking about like this socioeconomic strata of these stores, because one of the things that was really interesting was that, none of them, I mean, because we're in a really weird time where you can't, not only can you not afford the new consoles, like you can't get the new consoles,
yeah.
you can't get the new games, like they're like, and it's 2022 in case anyone has listened to this later, February 18th, and like you can't get you can't just go buy a PS5, you can't just go buy the new Xbox, you can barely go buy a Nintendo Switch right now. And so we're going into these stores, and they just have like so much retro gaming, which is a sign of like just where we're at. Like and same thing for PC gaming. I mean, you can't the game PC gaming's another, you know, like a I don't know, illusion, because like you can't get the high end graphics cards right now either. And so culturally, you're seeing like a strata of people that come in that, you know, I mean, there were some people that were looking to get like $30 for their old like Wii, you know, and they were like, yeah, we'll take it, you know. And then there are like some people that are going in there and they're just looking to get like a bunch of games or buy at the anime shops. You know, we were seeing things that were priced at like 3, 5, $600. Like it was like a whole nother strata of space, especially when you go away from the gaming, but you still have the game characters and go into like figurines and is that what they're called?
Yeah,
Nathan?
figurines,
Yeah,
statues,
yeah, statues.
just a variety of collectibles.
Because of the detail that goes into them, you know. And then the other one that we saw heavily was is it called Funko?
The Funko Pops.
Yeah, which is like a specialty of Anthony. So
I
I don't want.
Yeah, well, but yeah, I've cut back on that. But I
You know,
was
I'm not about that life anymore, Joe.
not about that. And here I am staring at a few, and
Well,
uh,
you're like me, man. I mean, I love bicycles, but I you know, I cut it down to 2, you know. I was like, I don't need to have that many in my life, but I definitely, yeah, I'm the same way about vinyl. Like I have 1,000 records, but I probably own like 8,000 records throughout my life. But I'm just always paring it down because like, how many records do you really need? You know, I just want, my eyes can only look at so much. And then it's just all in the closet or something, you know.
yeah,
And I just picture them, like I picture the Funko just saying, "Hey, let me out. I want y'all to look at
in El
me."
Paso, it's a lot worse than it is in my apartment. But it's a mix of
But
Batman.
that's all influencing on it, and that's why I bring up like even when we were talking about Rios, my, you know, my business partner, like, you know, I mean, he worked at Peter Piper Pizza, you know what I mean. Like talk about some arcade games and some animatronics going on. And well, I don't know if they had animatronics at Peter Piper. They
No,
had
I don't
Chuck E.
think.
Cheese.
Yeah, check
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Chuck E. Cheese
I
had
don't
it, you
believe.
know. And I can't, I honestly can't remember if he worked at Chuck E. Cheese or not. But I definitely went to some birthday parties for his daughter at Chuck E. Cheese. But I'm getting off track like I always do. But yeah, like so, you know, all this to say that I think if we were to go and do this further, we have some roadmaps
Mhm,
that we can now flesh out.
mhm.
And you know, if we were going to go IRB style and go do interviews, like I think we definitely have some questions now that we'd like to ask and some certain kinds of people that we'd like to interview. You know, I would love to find some Latina gamers, and I'd also like to find some Latina cosplay game themed
Cos-
actresses, basically, or cosplayers, and talk to them and see, like, you know, where are these stories getting sussed out, like how are they entering this, who was influential in it. Like one of the things that resonated with both Anthony and Christian was that their dads like introduced them to gaming, whereas like my dad was like, I don't know, but like my mom was like, I guess y'all can get one, you know. And that's like kind of how we did it. But it was like, you know, we all have these entry points, and one of the things we kind of noticed was we also had like Anthony talked about, kind of like this family thing and this friendship thing where these you built these networks off of gaming. You know, one of the stories I told Anthony was like how when I would go to my friends to go play Nintendo at their house, I would bring my own Nintendo with like a black and white TV, and it was like, just because it's like, you know, there's only so many people that could play Nintendo at once, and so we would have like this extra one, and we definitely played it, but it was like, you know, definitely second rate at the same time. It was like this black and white with these ears and everything. I mean, and it was in the 90s. Color television had been around for a long time. I found this, like, you know, little TV that I could, like, you know, futz around with and make it work. But but yeah, I mean, what kind of questions do you have, Anthony, that kind of
I
you
mean,
ended up sussing out?
just even through this conversation, and even going through the presentation slides and the blog that we're creating as a companion piece to our presentation, where, I just thought, man, this honestly, this research that we've conducted can like be multiple pieces of projects. You know what I mean? We like you mentioned, we can go so many different routes with it that we can do like a whole different, like an anthology worth of
Yeah.
game. Maybe not that drastic, but
No, I mean we could, because it's like
conclusion
a
to a lot.
one of the big things that came out, like one of the things that sussed out was Latino or Latinx gaming and food.
Mhm,
And then one of the other things that even right before we started recording this was in, I showed you Christian having a booth
mhm.
at a community college, and there's like three buzz, and there's like, all these like paletes and everything surrounding him, and people are gaming and having this whole other experience, and it just integrated, which was really interesting. And we will, again, we'll have photos of all this on our blog, which is a really cool part. um this is like our companion podcast piece. And so, like, there's the food part, then there's like the clothing part, then
Mhm.
there's like we talked about, like the figurines, there's spent like
The
uh um
cosplayers.
the cosplayers, the artists. Oh, we didn't even talk, like that was another one that,
That
like,
was another thing too, is that
yeah,
we
I mentioned that.
in these various stores that we had the chance to visit, we started to notice that there were gamers and participants of this community that would make fan art of these characters that they enjoyed, and like whether it's Pokemon Pikachu and different Pokemon. We also
It would be
saw
Link, like whoever. Yeah, yeah,
Zelda. I think we saw Samus,
yeah,
Battletoads,
yeah.
Mario, Yoshi, Kirby, a bunch of Nintendo characters for sure. Oh my gosh, I don't know, maybe Sonic too, I believe.
Yeah, yeah. We
Um,
just There was just a
there's just a
ton,
lot of.
and so, like, we're at and I missed this, and it wasn't until Anthony was going through his photos, and he's like, "Did you see the wall of fan art that was for sale?" I'm like, "Fan art for sale? I did not." And this was at like Game Over video games, like a video game resale shop. So it wasn't like an anime or a comic book store or something like that. This was straight up for like gaming.
Mhm.
And then on the back wall, yeah, there's this whole, fan art that's for sale that you can go and buy. And so that was a whole other thread that was really interesting that we'd love to do. And again, like, there's a whole art side too. I would love to, like, you can look at TikTok, you could look at Instagram. I mean, just going online, there's so much. Twitch, of course. You can do all these digital studies, but for us, like, or at least for me, I really like going to these spaces, just like
it,
seeing
it was
you're
really,
there.
and if again, time was the biggest limitation for us, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and that was the biggest factor in terms of how we could have conducted the study differently, and the it was a factor of how the reason why we conducted it the way that we did as well. And so if we had the time again, we would have done so many different routes or gone so many different routes that the project that you all are reading or hearing about today would be much different from what we're discussing at the moment. But with all that being said, it gave us a lot of ideas, like Joey's mentioning too, for so many different possibilities for the future that we might want to tackle down the road. And so, I mean, another thing that we talked about was um, these bars that are now like a mix of bars and arcades. And so and we even joked around that a lot of them have these rundown machines and stuff like that too. And so, but
Like, the gamers are upset because they're like, I didn't come here to drink. I came here to play games. Damn it. Yeah.
literally games for
Yeah.
nostalgia.
Yeah.
And so it's it's funny. But we had the discussion of that too, like these adult oriented video game bars, and that are starting to become more and more popular. And so we discussed that because there's both in El Paso and in San Antonio, the two cities that we focused on within this project. There are bars that have that arcade theme, and so we were thinking about that as well. And we were thinking
And
about
oh, and we had also like discussed like that, because we're not ignoring Dave and Buster's, by the way, because They have one in El Paso and in San Antonio. And so it wasn't even like even that. It was just like we're seeing these like smaller bars, smaller venues that pop up that have a lot of retro. Cause like at least my recollection of DMB, because I haven't been there in quite some time, was that they have pretty updated games and they have like unique games. Whereas like this was a lot of the ones that we're seeing pop up are like retro, and not just retro in the gaming, but the aesthetic. Like they're gonna build an aesthetic around it,
Yeah.
like Flynn's, like
Yeah,
from
definitely.
Tron, you know.
Definitely. Definitely, again, they're aiming for nostalgia within these bars, and that in itself could be another topic worthy of exploring even further, like the an analysis of Latinx gamers and nostalgia, or even fandom and
Yeah,
nostalgia, Latinx gaming fandom and nostalgia, and we even talked about you know like Joey mentioned, the content creators of gaming, Latinx content creators of gaming, the streamers, the esports, and even game development. We hinted that through one of the digital spaces that we were able to find, again through you I think through the meetup at UTEP or meetup.com. And then there's also
the San Antonio
the
Greater Gaming Society. Yeah,
that San Antonio Greater Gaming Society, that had a Twitch stream going because they had an online conference or digital conference. And they also have a Discord page where they have multiple discussions, and some of them are um, development, and they would interact with one another and say like, hey, I'm so and so, and I focus on this or I focus on that. And so there they would interact with one another and have these conversations about game development or just gaming in general. And so it was really cool to see those interactions too. Joey and I didn't really partake in the conversations because we don't, we were just there to explore and just to kind of like get a better understanding of like this type of
yeah,
thing.
and like and again, it was like one of those things where like you start running into maybe we need to have done IRB, you know, and so we didn't like dive too hard into anything
Yeah.
because as soon as we were like, that's really, oh, we should be careful, you
Yeah.
know? It's like- and so that's why we kind of took this approach. But on the other hand, like I feel confident, but imposter syndrome at the same time, in that I feel like I did a pretty big search for Latinx gaming and culture.
Mhm.
And while yes, there are people that have written about this and are writing about it, it's not like this is a huge space where it's been completely sussed out, especially in a Tejano sense. And so a lot of the ideas and questions that I think we're proposing, while there are legitimately like a good handful of people that are doing great work in those spaces, I think for us as amateurs, or I don't know, I always belittle myself. I don't try to think of myself as anything more than what I am.
Yeah.
um as people that are interested in the field but not masters of the field, I would say.
Mhm.
um we we're asking these questions because we knew that going into this, we're not masters of this. We knew that it would be better for us to ask questions and go in and be inquisitive and come out with more questions and try and assert all these things and definitively say what these things are, because this is our first paper, our first jump into this. Like, why? There's no need for that. We're not those people. Yeah, these
Yeah.
aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah. We'll straight up call ourselves out before anybody else ever calls it.
Yeah, we're like Eminem, right?
Yeah. So we'll be our first critics before anybody else. And
Yeah,
like Joey said,
yeah,
like we're brand new to this line of scholarship,
yeah.
line of research. And while we both have quote unquote credentials within popular culture,
Oh yeah, for sure.
research and scholarship, the gaming side of it is something that we both were fairly new to, even though we do have
Yeah,
a history of gaming in our life.
yeah. I mean, it I'm I'm modest. You know what I mean? Like I worked for IC Squared and did like video gaming research, and I've I helped open an arcade. And I've built fight sticks, and I've done like a lot of like hardware and software development and all kinds of stuff.
I just play games.
But that all said, it's like that's just one part of someone's lived reality, and what makes us, at least I know what makes Anthony and I excited is not us saying this is what this is, as much as saying like, dude, we would love to talk to other people about this and suss ideas out collaboratively, because that's like what brings both and I mean I feel like I can speak for Anthony here, is that that's what brings us the most rewarding feeling in academia, is us collaborating with other people and coming up with ideas and pursuing them, more so than us like going and finding these things out and saying, here's our flag, we've marked our territory, like don't come over here. Is That's just not how we operate.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, to kind of wrap everything up too, you're probably asking yourself, listener or viewer, I don't know how we're conducting this.
Academic, whoever.
Yeah, whoever's
Mom.
watching.
Hey mom. Yeah.
My mom will probably listen to this. So hey mom, hey Viv, Alice, friends listening.
Yeah,
Because I would
colleagues,
colleagues.
esteemed gamers.
Yes, yes.
And artists.
Content creators. No,
Yeah,
we're just giving shout outs to everyone at this point.
yeah, exactly.
But basically what I'm trying to say is, like, in conclusion, what did we find? That's probably what you're asking. And so again, we wanted to look at Latinx communities with Latinx gaming spaces within Texas, or we, as we call them, Tejanx, gamers. And so again, we were able to find that there were both physical and digital spaces within the gaming communities, the Latinx gaming communities here in Texas. We were also able to identify that there were cultural signifiers, which means there were markers of Latinidad or markers of culture found within these spaces, such as food, language, familismo, like the groups of family, generational gamers, that parents would pass down their gaming devices to their children, or want to share with their children in their experiences of gaming with one another. They also shared all these different, again, cultural signifiers. But those were some that we found in particular. Appearance was another thing too, that we noticed that these people were Latinx. It's like, we could tell, because we're Mexican American.
Yeah.
And again, these, granted, with that being said, we did focus on two cities that are highly populated within Latinx and Hispanic populations. So again, more than likely we would find Hispanic and Latinx people within these communities. So but again, due to time constraints, it kind of made it limited our explorations and data collection and stuff. But overall, we still found this experience to be like really, really fun and really, really thought-provoking in the best possible way, because it gave us the opportunity to think even further and in exploring other options of this project. And that's what made this project so fun. Not only did we get a look at cool gaming shops and popular culture related shops within Latinx communities, but we also had the chance just to just think about gaming within our own personal lives too, and how
Our own lived reality. Yeah.
lived realities, and how that helped shape this project. And that in itself was fun to just reflect on and just to have in general. So that's basically the conclusion of our study, and what we learned from it too. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Joey.
No, I mean, just that there was just, we knew we had to dive in somehow. Like one of the things I was thinking like that when you were talking, I wanted to say was that we one of the things of our intentionality was that we didn't include Best Buy, Target, GameStop. We intentionally didn't go to any of those, but like you could do a whole study of just saying, okay, like let's pick GameStop and let's go to all the GameStops and look at it geographically and demographics in terms of GIS data, and see like what kind of observation, like what kind of people are going, but then also do they have the same kind of gaming resources, like what's in the store, what's their inventory like, those kinds of things, so that you can kind of see, is there any disparities in between these stores. And same thing for like Best Buys and things like that. And so, for us, I think looking back, I'm glad that we didn't do that, because I think that would have been overwhelming
Oh yeah.
for the scope. And I feel like we got the most bang for our time, bang for our buck, whatever, with going to these regional places, I mean, and local places, because you just got to meet all these characters. And I would definitely love to go back with IRB. I mean, I even ran into a former student of mine who, I mean, this was like really, just real quick, just, it was interesting because she ends up, she's like the manager of one of the biggest comic book stores in San Antonio. And she ends up telling me about how they've become certified for, Magic the Gathering, and have built up this whole like presence for what they do. And they're recognized in Texas as one of the best comic book stores. And Anthony definitely had a field day in there.
Oh man.
But what was cool was that, like, even just talking to her reflexively, she ends up talking to me about how she'd really like to go to graduate school and like study women in Magic the Gathering spaces, and like what the representation looks like. And I was just like, wow, like we just walked into this store. I have friends with her on Facebook, but I had forgotten that she worked at that store. And we end up having like this deep conversation. So there was a reflexiveness there that was really interesting to us. And that there was a lot of lived realities going on around there, and stories to be sussed out and told, because she definitely has an interesting story. And so that's like what excites me about like kind of moving forward is, whether or not we are the ones doing it, I'd love to see one, like my students, at A&M, and then wherever you land, like your students going and doing this, and us being able to facilitate it, and going to this conference and meeting other people that we can facilitate and have them interact with and talk to real experts, about like whatever it is. Because I was looking at the programming, and I'm like, yeah, this is great. There's some areas that we are totally laying, and that we need to go and listen to some of these talks. And so it'd be super exciting. So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody.
Definitely
Yeah.
listening, and we hope you enjoyed this project.
Yeah. Y'all have a great day. And like we said, this will be on the blog. I've even just doing this, I got more ideas for the blog, but we're going to have photos, video, and this podcast. So take it easy. Good to see y'all.